Hey guys, it's me Elizabeth. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing 24 books in 2024, the 24 books that I want to read in 2024. I obviously want to read a lot more than this, but these are the absolute highest on the list that I want to read. It was kind of hard to pick 24 because I have more that I wanted to add, but alas, earwax. So, let's get into this. I hope this isn't too long. I feel like the last couple of videos I've been filming were really long, which means it could take me forever to edit, but hopefully this isn't too long. Let's just get into the books. I have a lot of books here. They're in no particular order. I'm just going to start with these facts. I am going to mention one book that I don't own, and then we'll get into it. Year is to read mainly books that are on my physical TBR. I will be listening to audiobooks, but I'm hoping that most of the audiobooks that I do listen to end up being the books that are on my physical TBR. Right now, that's not really happening, but I'm hoping in the future that that's what will be happening. We'll see. But the number one book that I'm going to talk about here is just a continuation of a series, and I don't own the next book. Technically, I could get a copy because my brother owns the books, and I could, take one of his books. And that is, I don't know the title, but that is book 7 in the Wheel of Time. I just recently finished the audiobook for book 6 so far. I've been reading Wheel of Time by audiobook, and I plan to continue doing it that way. So eventually, when I get another audio credit or whatever, I'm going to be reading book 7 by audio. But I did want to mention that as one book that isn't on my physical TBR. Eventually, one day, I will own all the Wheel of Time books. But not today. I only own 2 or 3, so I do want to read book 7. Again, I don't know the title of that one. I don't remember what the title for it is, but I do want to get to the Wheel of Time. I want to get more through it. I'm not expecting that I'll finish it this year, but if I could make my way a good portion of the way further into it, I'd be very happy. At least 2 or 3, maybe more. We'll see. I've already read 1. So hopefully we can get to the rest. Next, getting into our physical books, we have The Narrow Road Between Desires by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a novella in the Kingkiller Chronicles. I still need to get to finish the other novella, the Slow Regard of Silent Things. I started that one, but I don't actually know what happened to my copy of it. It disappeared somewhere. But I did legitimately start reading that. I need to finish that. But once I finish that, I want to read this one. This is about Bast. And I'm excited. Both of these novellas aren't very exciting. There's nothing exciting happening. It's just a day in the life of these characters. But I still want to read it because it's a Kingkiller Chronicle novella. Kingkiller Chronicle is one of the best chronicles ever. Continuing in the fantasy genre here, we have The Lives of Lockermora by Scott Lynch. Everyone's always talking about this. It's one of the popular fantasy series. I really need to get a copy that's not mass market. But I really want to read this book. There are actually 3 books, and I think there's supposed to be maybe 4. I think it's only going to be 4, but the 4th one hasn't. It's the same idea as Patrick Rothfuss. This author hasn't come out with the book, and it's been however long, and he probably never will, so I'm interested to read it, though, because it sounds interesting, and everyone's always raving about it, and I'm intrigued by it. Next, we have a classic here. This one has been on my list for centuries, and I decided this is the year I'm going to read it, because I need to finally read it. I've had it on my shelves for so long, and that is Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. I've had this book for years, and I haven't touched it. And I feel like for me personally, this might be kind of a harder one to read because it is, it's a different format than a lot of books. I think it's verse or something, I don't know. I'm not used to reading books exactly like this, and I think it might be more, I don't know if this is, I think it might be more kind of Old English, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I haven't read it, but this is a classic that I've owned for such a long time, and I'm like, I finally need to get to it. I do want to mention that I really do want to get to some of Homer's books as well, but I had to remove something from this list because I was trying to make it 24, so I didn't add it to the list. But that is something I would like to get to this year as well, the Iliad and the Odyssey. We'll see if I get to any of this, but specifically, really want to get to this one because this one's been here probably the longest, and out of the older classics, and I need to finally got another classic here. We've got The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Literally everyone raves about this book. I mean, obviously it's a classic, but even people who don't read classics, or they read like just one classic or whatever, they say, and everyone reads this book because everyone's like, if they're gonna read a classic, they're gonna read this one, I guess. I don't know. But everyone's obsessed with this book, and I want to read it. And I have this really cool copy. This is the copy from Canon Press. So this is a Canon classic. I really like their editions. But I will say, I don't like their editions because of this reason. Like, I love the covers and the way they feel and look, but it is kind of hard to open. Like, you gotta make a more floppy book there, bruh. This is not floppy, and it does make it hard to open, and I don't want to destroy it. But Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde is on the list. We have another fantasy, and we have Full Moon by Jim Butcher, book 2 in the Dresden Files. I read book 1 last year, and I honestly can't believe I haven't read book 2 yet, because oh my gosh, did I love book 1 so much. It was amazing. Honestly, book 1 was almost a 5-star book for me. The only thing that knocked points off was that there were some inappropriate scenes. Other than that, it was absolutely amazing. This is right down my alley. Not only is the writing good and the characters great, but it's detective fantasy fiction. Like, detective fantasy, like he's a detective and he has magic. He's a wizard detective. That's just right down. We have another classic and a chonker, and that is Bleak House by Charles Dickens. This is a battered copy that I thrifted, but I want to read Bleak House. This is one of the books by Dickens that I want to read the most, and I literally cannot explain to you why I want to read this the most, but I just do, and it's huge. But I want to read this one a lot because I don't know, I've just always really wanted to read this book, and I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I love Dickens, so hopefully I love it, but I don't know. We'll see what I think, but and I've seen the TV show for this, but I don't know. For some reason, I just really want to read this book specifically out of all Dickens books, so I put this on the list. But really, I want to read as many Dickens books as I can possibly get to this year. That might be 1, that might be 2. Hopefully it's 2 because I'm currently reading David Copperfield, and I need to get through that, and then obviously, like I said, I want to read this one, so hopefully it's at least. We have a autobiography, and that is As I Remember by Lillian M. Gilbreth. I feel like I've mentioned this multiple times, but I don't know if any of those mentions actually ended up on the internet. But I received this for Christmas. I am actually quite dying to read this. It is an autobiography of Lillian Muller Gilbreth, who is the mother in Cheaper by the Dozen. And I'm just so interested. Cheaper by the Dozen is one of my favorite books of all time. Book duology, you could say, of all time. And I love the Gilbreths. I love everything about them. And I love this cover. This cover is stunning. I can't explain it, but I just love this cover. And I can't wait to get to this. I hope that I get it on my February TBR because I need to read this. I'm just going to go with the last couple classics here. First, we have Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. This one I've been meaning to read for years. It's finally time that I get to it. I love the TV miniseries for Ivanhoe. It's one of my favorite things ever. And I need to read the book. I need to read the original source. So we have Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. And next we have The Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas. I need to read this, and I need to read it ASAP. Because, if you don't know, I'm officially obsessed with Alexander Dumas' writing. The Count of Monte Cristo is one of the best books I have ever read in my entire life. It was absolutely amazing. Was it the biggest book? Or one of the biggest books? Yeah, it is. It's huge. But it was so amazing. It was amazing. I want to reread it and annotate it and all of that because it was so good. So I really need to get to more of his books. I also have another book written by him, but this one I specifically want to read because I've always loved the story of the Three Musketeers, and I've always loved the movie, the old movie with, I can't remember the actor's name, but it has Kiefer Sutherland in it, I believe. But then it has somebody else, something O'Donnell. I don't remember his name, but I loved that movie as a kid, and I still love that movie, and I need to read the book. I need to read Alexander Dumas's. Next couple books, we have some histories and sort of a random, could you call it history, I guess, kind of? I don't know. So next we have Seabiscuit by Laura Hillenbrand. This book has been on my TBR ever since I finished Unbroken, which was what, like years ago? Back when I was a teenager. I've had this on my list for centuries, and I still haven't read it. If I don't read this book this year, feel free to cancel me because I need to read this book this year. Like, it is a crime that I haven't read this book. And you might be slightly confused. The reason I say that is because Unbroken is literally, like, basically my favorite book. My favorite nonfiction book of all time. It's my favorite standalone book of all time. It's one of the best books on the planet. This is her other book that is also a historical nonfiction, and I need to freaking read it. Next, we have 20 Hours and 40 Minutes by Amelia Earhart. This has been on my list for centuries as well. This has been on my list for years, since like 2016 or something. I don't know, but basically, I'm really interested in Amelia Earhart. I don't know why. I'm just interested in her as a flight person. What do we call that? I'm interested in Amelia Earhart, and I've had this book for years, and it's her book that she wrote, so I need to freaking read it already. And the next book I have is The Fall of Arthur by J.R.R. Tolkien, edited by Christopher Tolkien. I've had this on my list for a few years now. I discovered this, I want to say, back in 2022, beginning of 2022, I discovered this, and I was like, because if you don't know, J.R.R. Tolkien is like the best author on the planet, and I'm obsessed with Arthurian stuff. So when I saw this, I was like, excuse you, I need that now. So I did get this for my birthday from my sister, and I still haven't read it. I feel so ashamed because I was so excited for this book, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I still haven't read it. So I need to read it this year. I am very excited. Again, I'm obsessed with Arthurian things. But you would think with my Arthurian obsession and all of the books that I own on Arthurian stuff that I would know a lot about it. But I haven't read like any of the books I own, so I need to read my Arthurian books. Okay, I have like 2 handfuls of books related to Arthurian stuff. We have one non-fiction Christian on here. I should read more non-fiction Christian, but I gotta start slow. And this is one that I actually started reading back, I don't know how many years ago, 2021, 2020, I don't even know. But that's Paradise Restored by David Chilton, A Biblical Theology of Dominion. I really legitimately need to read this. Like, no joke. I started this, and we actually were doing like a little book study on this, and then we stopped. And then because we stopped, I haven't touched it since, really. So I need to actually legitimately read this. We have some fantasy. This is the majority fantasy books that I have left. So we have Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead. Again, I've had this on my list for a long time, and I actually started reading this one time, but didn't get very far. But I would love to listen to an audio version of this because I feel like I would actually get through it quicker and easier if I was listening to the audio. But this again, this is actually another Arthurian related thing. This is the Pendragon Cycle. It's the first book of the Pendragon Cycle, a magnificent epic set against the backdrop of Roman Britain and the legend of Arthur and Atlantis. Like, that is right down my alley, and I still haven't read the series, and it is a series, obviously. and I need to get to it. I need to get to Stephen R. Lawhead already. Next, I'm hoping to start getting into some Stephen King this year. I'm not really into horror, so I'm not going to be reading any of his horror books, really. But I do want to read The Gunslinger, Dark Tower #1. This is a fantasy series that he wrote, and I've heard so many people gush about how amazing the series is. So I need to get into it. It sounds really good. And next, I have Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. I found this at the thrift store. I was literally thinking about reading this book, and I found it at the thrift store. How coincidental is that? Also, I did try to read this 2 separate times throughout my life. First time, I had to give it back to the library because I didn't read it in time. The second time, I actually owned the copy and decided that I wanted to get rid of it for some dumb reason. But here we are, we're back again, and we're going to give it another shot. This is the last time. If I don't like it or if I DNF it, I will be getting rid of it. But I also own the second book because they were at the same thrift store. But I'm hoping to get to this one. We'll see if I enjoy it. I just keep looking at the cover and keep thinking about this book and thinking that I should read this because I will probably enjoy it. But the few times that I did read it, I didn't get very far, and I think the last time I tried to read it, I wasn't super into it, but I want to like it and be into it, so. The next book we have is The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. I have heard great things about this book. Some of these books I've just heard great things about when I want to read them because they sound amazing and people are talking about them, and that's really fun when people are talking about them. One of my favorite booktubers of all time was talking about this and saying how great it was, and I was like, I want to read that. It was already on my list to read, but then he made me want to read it more, so it's on here. I want to read it. I'm excited. I hope it's good. The next book on the list isn't this book, but I have to hold this book up because I don't own the book that is next, and that is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. Let me tell you, I am dying to read the next book, Best Served Cold. It's not, just ignore the title. It's Best Served Cold, okay? By Joe Abercrombie. So, I am dying to read Best Served Cold. I've been dying to read the next book by Joe Abercrombie ever since I finished the last book that I read by him. But, I don't own it. I was so dumb, and I bought a bunch of these books, off of Bergen Binding, and I didn't buy the one that I need to read. The next book is called The Call of the Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. This is book 2 in the Tide trilogy. I read The Bone Ships, the first book, last year, and I really want to continue in the trilogy. I would ideally like to read both of the next books, The Bone Ships, Call of the Bone Ships, and The Bone Ships Wake, but we'll see. I at least want to read this one. I really enjoyed The Bone Ships. It was fun. Wasn't my favorite book or anything, but I really liked it. It was a good book, and I want to continue in the trilogy. And next, we have Royal Assassin. I just recently finished Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, so I definitely want to read book 2, and hopefully book 3, but I want to get through this little trilogy here, the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. I really want to get through this trilogy. I think it's the first book. I will say, if you're interested in Robin Hobb, for me, the first book started out really slow, and I was just like, I like the writing and the characters, but this is like really slow, nothing's happening. And then eventually it got into stuff, and then it got less. It was still a slower paced book, but it definitely got way more interesting, and it wasn't as slow for me. But I do want to get to the next book. I'm excited. Hopefully sometime soon. I would like to read these closer to each other than I read most of my series, just because I'd like to read my series a lot closer together when I can, when I own the books for them. And since I own the 3 books in this trilogy, like, I should read them a lot closer. The last couple books here, we have the most giant books on my TBR. First, we have the one that I am probably the most excited for. Let's be realistic. I think this is the one I'm most excited for out of every single book I own. Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. Book 6 in the Red Rising saga. What to say? I'm currently reading Dark Age. I'm listening to the audio. Red Rising is the best thing on the planet. I'm obsessed with Pierce Brown, and I cannot wait to get to this book. But obviously, I gotta finish Dark Age first. And you know I'm getting to this as soon as I finish Dark Age, and maybe some of the other books in my January TBR. I'm definitely going to be reading this very soon. If not at the end of January, if I don't start this at the end of January, I'll definitely be starting it in February because I cannot wait. And second to last, we have a book in preparation for December of 24. I want to finally get to the fourth book in one of my favorite series of all time, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. This book, obviously all of these books are huge, so can't expect anything less from this, but I'm so excited. I can't wait to read this. I definitely want to read this one very soon as well because I'm obsessed with the Stormlight Archives as well. These books are so huge. One day, so far I've read these all by audiobook, and I will probably do that for this one, but I would one day love to attempt to read these physically and, annotate them because they're so huge and amazing, and it's so much fun to hold. Look at how floppy that is. Look at how floppy this freaking book is. It's a beautiful floppy paperback. I'm obsessed. And I can't wait to read this. I'm so excited. This is also probably going to be very soon, hopefully in February or March or sometime really soon. I half wish I would have put some of these on my January TBR, but I had a bunch of other books I put on there, so I'm just I am dying to read this one. The last book that I have on this list is probably the longest. Actually, I don't know if this is longer than Sanderson's book. It's not longer than Sanderson's book. It's only 900, but this is the second most intimidating book on my physical TBR, and the most intimidating book on this stack of books, and that is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I have been wanting to read this for years, and I still haven't gotten to it. Basically, I absolutely love the 2012 version of this movie with Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe. Yes, Javert is the best character. Come at me. Russell Crowe's character is the best. Stars is the best song. I love that movie, and I've been wanting to read the book for years, but I've been so intimidated, and with most books that I've ever read, especially classics, I don't condone the use of listening to them or reading them in abridged version. I don't condone that. I don't like reading abridged. I don't think you should read the abridged. I think you should read the full text that the author wrote. But with Les Miserables, I'm going to read the abridged version. It's happening. I actually attempted to read this, got a couple pages in, and there you go. There's my bookmark, Van Gogh. I did get a couple pages into this. I was going to annotate it. It was going to be a thing last year. Didn't happen. But I was talking to my mom at one point, and she's like, I don't think you should read abridged versions for any book, but with Les Miserables, you definitely need to read an abridged version because there's so much political stuff that you're not going to understand. It doesn't really matter and all of this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree. I think I might end up reading an abridged version. So I think I'm going to read the abridged version for this somewhere. Obviously, this isn't the abridged version. I'm going to find an audio somehow that's abridged. But I do want to get to this. This is my number one priority in classics this year. I finally want to read this book. And that, folks, is the end of the video. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on any of the books, if you've read any of them, or your books that you want to read in 2024. And I will see you in the next video. I hope you have your own fun reading adventures. Bye.